All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, for listening, following, subscribing. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Today's episode, like always, is brought to you by Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbey Road in Lackawanna, just minutes down the road from Highmark Stadium. If you have not been there, make sure you do. Some of the best food, vibes, places in town. One of my favorites, big supporter of the show. So make sure that you get out and support them as well. All right, I hope you guys had a great Christmas. This is going to be our Friday show. No episodes the last 2 days, but I am definitely back today, and I'm joined a little bit different than normal. Typically, he's my midweek Wednesday guy, but we got him on Friday. Didn't want to waste him on Christmas Day. Matt Warren, SB Nation. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Doing okay. We hosted Christmas yesterday, so in a little bit of a haze today, and not just from all that Christmas cheer in my cup, but just like it's been, like you said, we're recording Thursday, so it's just been a bit of a week so far.
It feels so. We are recording this on Thursday, mid-afternoon. Yeah, it feels like Monday to me right now. If there was ever a Christmas that was in the middle of the week that would feel on a Sunday, it was definitely this year. Of course, it being on Wednesday. I think football had a lot to do with that too. Not one, but two games, and actually two games with huge interest, rooting interest for the Buffalo Bills and Bills fans, which we're going to get into here in just a few minutes. But glad you enjoyed your Christmas. Did Santa hook you up at all? At our age, Santa is not really too concerned about people like you and I, but
Well, I mean, for starters, and I posted this on social media, so if you follow me anywhere, you've already seen it. But like, my father-in-law decided he wanted to do a prime rib roast,
I saw
and
that.
so he bought it and brought it over, and I cooked it yesterday, it's my first time handling a piece of meat that was that expensive. So that was really fun. My wife's aunt gave me this bottle of Buffalo Bills AFC Championship
Nice.
champagne from 1990, still unopened, because the Bills didn't win the Super Bowl that year. But so just like, so we got some cool stuff, and Santa's right here, the Funko Pop Santa, like hanging out. So like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. If anyone out there, if you're listening to the show and you're wondering why you didn't get any socks, I'll tell you why. It's because I got all the socks. I got all of the socks, all of them for Christmas. No, seriously, no, I did get. If you can see it on the video side, Buffalo Braves. I'm a big throwback fan, so I got my nice little Buffalo Braves hoodie. You said Funko Pop. I will tell you, I got to put this on the camera. This is the one seriously cool thing that I did get. My daughter got this for me, so huge shout out to my daughter Madison. It's the Funko Josh Allen from 2018, the 109 version. It's really cool, man. And you can't see it, like you won't see it anyway when you watch the video on camera every day. But I got it right at the front of my desk when you walk into my studio. Really cool, cool gift from her. But yeah, all in all, Christmas was very enjoyable, of course. Not so much on the football side of things.
Right.
That's what we're gonna spend some time talking about today. This is gonna be like a Bills kind of like post-Christmas big talking points type of episode here on Friday. So again, Santa hopefully was good to everybody, and hopefully everyone got to enjoy some time with their loved ones. But from a Christmas point of view, in terms of football for the Bills, it went about as bad as it could possibly go. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the Pittsburgh Steelers soundly. The Baltimore Ravens went on the road and just humiliated, quite frankly, the Houston Texans. So all in all, that means, if you don't know already, the Buffalo Bills are officially out as having an opportunity to be the number one seed. And they also did not clinch the number two seed, which could have happened if Houston would have beat Baltimore. But again, that was never in doubt. Let me start here with you, Matt. All these weeks later, all these, we could have had shows, and we did talk about this many times, where who would you prefer to play in the playoffs? Like, what is the path that would give you the path of least resistance for the Buffalo Bills to get to a Super Bowl? And as things are playing out right now, it certainly seems, at least very likely, potentially, the path for the Bills to get to a Super Bowl is going to be the hardest version that you can get. It seems that the Bills right now are on a collision course with the Baltimore Ravens round two divisional round in Buffalo, assuming, of course, the Bills would win their wild card round.
Right.
Uh, unless Baltimore loses next week at home to Cleveland and Pittsburgh beats Cincinnati, who knows who's got what to play for in that game? A little too early to tell. But all signs are pointing to the Ravens now winning the AFC North after Wednesday.
Mhm.
And again, being the 3 seed, which would mean if they win their wild card round game, they'd be coming to Buffalo. All signs are pointing there. What are your initial thoughts following Wednesday's games?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a foregone conclusion that the Bills are going to have to go through Baltimore, because like we're going to know a lot more after Saturday, because the
Sure.
Chargers and Broncos both play that day. Um, if the Chargers end up playing the Ravens in that wild card round, that could be a really interesting game. I think that the Chargers present, um, you know, a, a unique challenge, and I think that they could definitely knock off the Ravens in that wild card game. My takeaways from yesterday, I didn't watch either of the games. Like I said, we were hosting, so I didn't
Right.
want to monopolize the television in the middle of Christmas and all that stuff. But obviously, I saw highlights and went through the box scores and stuff like that. And I think putting it as an embarrassment is probably the right way to put it when you're talking about Ravens and Texans, and especially because like it locks Houston into that 4 seed, and like just there's just so many things that happened on Christmas Day as far as the AFC playoff picture goes. Obviously, I wanted the Bills to have the 1 seed so that the playoffs would go through Buffalo. They still could theoretically, but
Sure.
it's not that big of a deal. Hold on one second.
You're good. You're good as Matt's going to take care of his dogs. All right, I'll pull up my full screen and talk here for a second. To your point, let me say this about, first of all, the Ravens did play the Chargers earlier this season and they won. In fact, it was just a handful of weeks ago. I believe it was 30-23. So Baltimore already put up 30 on the Chargers once. I put on Twitter earlier, actually today, if this would be a situation where who would you rather, if you're a Bills fan, would you rather see the Ravens face the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Chargers? And I think you can make a case for each. I do like what you were talking about, the unknown a little bit more with the Chargers, a really strong defense, a very good running game. However, like I said, Baltimore's already kind of solved that puzzle once. Plus, you would also have the you would also have the potential, the dilemma of the Chargers going from the West Coast to potentially in the elements. That's not good. Whereas Pittsburgh, the enemy. They've beaten them before. They've played them. This would be a third time. So I kind of feel like maybe Pittsburgh would have the better chance of upsetting them. But quite frankly, the way the Ravens are playing right now, Matt, which is kind of my point, I don't think either of those teams got I don't want to say a realistic chance. They don't got a very good chance, though, of beating Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens right now, we'll talk about this Lamar versus Josh, which is driving me nuts here in a few, but you got to tip your cap to the Ravens right now because they look really, really unstoppable. Running the ball, throwing the ball. Lamar's playing out of his mind great recently, and the defense has certainly turned things around from when they were struggling early in the season. I don't care if it's the Bills, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, whoever. Baltimore's looking like a really, really tough out right now for anybody.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing you mentioned, the defense at the end. Like obviously Lamar and Derrick Henry are playing really well, but they lost their offensive coordinator, so they're got a new play caller on that side of the ball, and just
Yeah.
like that whole transition took them a little bit of time. But like, obviously allowing 2 points to the Texans, not really on the defense like there. The Steelers, the Giants, like under 20 points. Like they haven't allowed 30 points since the Bengals game back on November 7th. They've just been really, really solid on that defensive side of the ball, and I think that's a huge difference for them.
Yeah. Okay. So we just spent a lot of time talking about the Ravens. I mean, look, man, when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, at this point, it's time to put a lot more respect on the Kansas City Chiefs, their name, than myself, maybe you, and a lot of others, fans especially, have done this season. What they are doing this year, to me, has went from just pure luck and some bullshit calls going their way, et cetera, et cetera. It's went from that to, holy shit, this is a good football team. Look, they're 15-1. The Bills have only lost 3 times, and it's already locked down the number 1 seed. The Kansas City Chiefs are 15-1. Dude, they have not scored 30 points this season. The Bills just did it before this last week, 8 straight games. The Chiefs haven't done it once, and they are 15-1. There's 3 other teams in the NFL that have not scored 30 points this year. None of those other teams have even won more than 3 games this year. The Chiefs are 15-1. And you know why they're 15-1? They're 15-1 because I think that defense is great. By the way, no Chris Jones against Pittsburgh on the road, and it didn't mean a lick of difference. And we all know how great Chris Jones is. That defense is great. That team never beats themselves ever. Like, if you beat them, you're going to beat them. The Bills beat them. They're the only team that's beaten them, literally. But you're going to beat them. They're not going to give the game away. They're not turning the ball over 4 times. They're not going to go out and score 6 points. That defense ain't going to go there and lay an egg like other teams, including Buffalo, have done from time to time. And sure, luck is a factor over the course of a long season. The benefit of calls is the benefit, you get lucky, good calls over the course of a season. But I'll tell you, man, all great teams have some luck. All great teams get a couple calls here and there. They're going to be, we're talking about Baltimore being a crazy hard out. Kansas City Chiefs are going to be a really hard out because, first of all, they got to bye. And then they're probably going to play the winner of Houston versus either Pittsburgh or the Chargers, whoever that 5 seed ends up being. Unless the 6 seed would shock the Ravens, then they would go to the, Kansas City. But it's sure as hell is looking like, especially now with Baltimore winning the AFC North and not going to Arrowhead, it certainly looks like all roads are going to go through Arrowhead in the AFC to getting to a Super Bowl. But all the things we've talked about going into these last couple of weeks, 3 games in 11 days, and to do what they've done on the road with injured players, their best defensive star out, just don't matter, dude. This team is a great, great, great football team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked since I remember back in November, we talked about how that their schedule was going to be so wonky with Black Friday and Christmas Day and all these other things playing into it. Plus they were playing all of these, playoff teams. They were playing the Chargers, they're playing the Texans, they're playing the Steelers. Next week they're against the Broncos. None of it mattered at all. It reminds me a lot of those old Patriots teams when you say they don't beat themselves, right? They just wait for the opponent to make a mistake or maybe make their own big turnovers. Obviously, the Bills didn't really do that in the game against the Chiefs, which is why Buffalo won. But you look at their schedule; it's not terribly scary, but what they have done, they don't they're just consistent and they don't make mistakes and they put themselves in a good position to win every game, which is why they have so many 1-score games, and it's why they win so many of those 1-score games.
Do you have a sense too, when it comes to the offense, that they haven't had that offensive explosion on the scoreboard at all at any point in the season? Again, they haven't scored 30 points yet this year, but it seems to me like Xavier Worthy has found his role with this team. And it seems to me like Travis Kelce, I think he had 7 catches on Christmas. He's doing what he did last year. Not much during the regular season, amps up when it matters. And then, of course, you have, Patrick Mahomes. You kind of feel like, and Hollywood Brown is back now. This is only 2 games in now. He'll have a point where he does something. Hopkins, it's like, all right, well, this defense is great. They don't beat themselves, blah, blah, blah. But it's not like this offense can't go out and score 28 to 40 points if that's what it's going to take for them to win a football game in the postseason. They just find a way. But yeah, to what the question I'm asking you, is it time to start being a little bit more scared about this offense as they get rolling into January as well?
I mean, getting back Hollywood Brown's a big deal for them too. So, their offense is going to click at some point. They've got Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. They have tools in place where it's going to click and come together. It's just a matter of, can you go punch for punch with them, blow for blow? And I think the Bills definitely can do that. We've seen them do that against the Rams when the Rams are on their A game. So it's still more scared of them. I'm not more scared of them today than I was when they played each other a few weeks ago. But
Yeah.
I certainly have a respectful
Sure.
worry about them. Yes.
I feel like, God, 10, 15, 20 years from now, when we're looking back at this era of Buffalo Bills football, whether, the Bills never win a Super Bowl, whether they win one or more, you're going to look back and say, if it wasn't for the Kansas City Chiefs being around, being what they were at the same time that
Mhm.
this era of Bills football is, the Bills probably could have won 4 Super Bowls. Like, I remember going back to the Super Bowl years of the Bills, and I'm telling you, every single year, the Bills to me were one of the best 2 teams in football. They
Mm,
just were the second best team and never the first. With the exception of, I'll die on the hill, the first Super Bowl, 1990, the Bills were
mm,
so much better than the Giants. Just one of those everything you could possibly do wrong days. That's the way it ended up being for the Bills. But I thought they were the best team. The rest of those years, though, whether it was Dallas, whether it was Frisco, whoever, mainly Dallas, they were Washington the one year. They were the second best team in the league. Right now, I kind of feel the same way, but maybe it's just conference instead of like the whole even league. Like it's like, man, weren't for the Chiefs, the Bills already should have won a Super Bowl, maybe 2 Super Bowls, and they'd be in the mix for a third. I just hope years from now, when we, go over this era of football, it wasn't like, goddamn, these Chiefs. Because that's the respect level I have for them right now.
right.
They're just so good. Conversely, though, let me ask you this. What the hell happened to the Houston Texans, dude? This was not the same football team, and they haven't been the same team that I've seen in week 5. And I know Tank Dell got hurt. I know Nico Collins missed time. I know Stefan's tore his ACL. He's been out for a long time. Lots of teams, though, have guys who go down and they respond just fine. This team still got a lot of weapons defensively. They still got their quarterback. They've had weapons all season offensively because they got so many that even if you lose one or two, you still got others. What the hell happened to this team? Because they look like a team that, they look like a 4 or 5 win team over the last month or so. What's going on with the Houston Texans? What happened to them?
Yeah, I mean, well, you talk about we've talked about how their offense can be really good, right? And like they had those superstar wide receivers that we just discussed, and CJ Stroud was going to, take another step in his second season and all that. But like, you
Mhm.
look at their scoring offense over the last, you said a couple months, they've scored 34, or they've scored more than 4 touchdowns just once since October 13th, and that was against the
Wow.
Dallas Cowboys in November. So they just 22 points, 23 points, 13, 23, 34, 27, 23, 20, 19, 2. Like they just have not had the offensive firepower, and a lot of that probably is to do with Stephon Diggs. But he came in, he was their third option at wide receiver anyway, and so like I don't really know what's been going on, with their offense, like at a granular level to be able to have that conversation. But they've only broken 30 points twice this year, and that's including with Steph Diggs and Nico Collins and Tank Dell and all of those guys all playing. So it's just their offense hasn't taken that next step. And I think I saw a meme on Twitter this morning. It was just like, when's the last time we called CJ Stroud a really good quarterback? And it's like, okay, like when's the last time he made like a superstar play or something like that? And, they've been few and far between this year. And, a lot of folks like to say that, quarterback development's linear, and he had a good rookie season, so he's going to be better in the second season. But, as we've seen over the years, that's certainly not the case.
Yeah, he's not the same quarterback this year as he was last year. And there's a lot of receipts going around to your point right now, like before the season talk, whether it was himself or others. Like I still remember that throw that he made to Stephon Diggs, and I don't remember who said it, but he's like, Josh Allen doesn't make that throw. I'm like, okay. I feel like I feel right now like they might be home underdogs in the wild card round, whether they're playing Pittsburgh or the Chargers. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Like if you're looking for a road team to win in the wild card round, it's probably going to start with Houston. I just, there's some teams that struggle, like the Bills last year. They were 6-6, dude, but I always felt like they were going to turn the corner, and ultimately they did. They turned it up. I look at the Houston Texans, and I just, between this offense and the way Stroud's playing, I don't see them turning it around. You know what I mean?
Well,
Maybe they win the wild card round, maybe, but that shit's going to end the following week if they do, when they go to Kansas City or wherever,
yeah,
Buffalo.
they've got 10, 11 days to get right, and then they're playing the Tennessee Titans. So like they should they're locked into their spot. So if
Yeah.
I'm D'Amico Ryan's, like, do I want to put my offense and defense on the field just to get like their legs back under them after 2 losses to the Chiefs and Ravens? Probably. Like I probably want to
Right.
go play my starters and be like, hey, go beat the tar out of the Titans, and then we can turn around and win in this wild card game. Like we're still very much where we want to be. But yeah, to your point, like they just have not looked good. I mean, they're playing good teams, obviously, but like it would be nice to do better than like 20-12 over the Dolphins, or barely squeaking out a victory over
Sure.
the Jacksonville Jaguars the game before that.
Here's what we're gonna do. Take a quick break, come back on the other side. I want to talk about some Buffalo Bills silver linings to come from Wednesday, because I do think that there's at least a couple silver linings, even though these Wednesday Christmas games did not go their way. So I want to hit on that. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about some Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. The MVP race is really heated up, and it's kind of one of those "what have you done for me lately" deals where now everyone in the world saying Lamar's going to win MVP. It's kind of wild to me. We'll talk about that in a couple potential playoff scenarios, how things play out right on the other side here. All right, I am back here with Matt Warren from SB Nation, our first post-Christmas edition of Talking Buffalo. So before the break, I said I thought there were some silver linings for the Bills, the way things played out. One of them, the team don't care. Fans probably do, though. Ticket buyers who bought tickets for this game, you're going to see the Bills going out there trying to lock up a victory, as opposed to if they already had the 2 seed locked up. It might be preseason style football between the Jets and the Bills here this Sunday from Highmark Stadium. So that alone, if you're a fan who buys tickets to the games, and you're going to see a football team that's going to be out there to try to win. Let me ask you a question that I did have prepared for you earlier in the week. If things went that the Bills would have locked up the 2 seed, would you have been in, I'm going to rest my starters and basically give them a 2-week bye mode? Or would you have still played your starters regardless this week, even if the number 2 seed, even if there was nothing at stake in terms of the standings?
I still think with Josh Allen in the MVP conversation,
Mm,
um, you don't want. I want to give them rest, but I don't necessarily think I want to give them 2 full weeks of rest.
sure,
So we definitely would have at least seen him start. I think Josh Allen's going to start both of these last 2 games to keep his consecutive starts streak alive. He's over 100 something consecutive starts, and that's a
sure,
longest active streak in the NFL among quarterbacks, and just obviously something that he takes pride in, that he doesn't miss games even when he breaks his damn hand and all this other
sure.
stuff. So like,
Yeah.
so I think that's certainly going to come into play. But I think they would have played significant time if the Bills had locked in that 2 seed. Um, Especially like I said, with Allen going for the MVP stuff, I think everyone in that building wants it for him. Obviously, you saw, well, maybe you haven't seen yet, the offensive line gave him that little like blinged out little pendant that said MVP on it, and
Yeah.
then put all their names on the back of it. So like people in the building obviously are rooting for him. The offensive line and a whole bunch of other people have been saying his name with the initials MVP after it, like every conversation they have with the media. So, I mean, it just feels like there would be groundswell for them to keep playing, even if they had locked in that 2 seed.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's a little fun fact that some people might wonder about. Be like, what are you talking about? How the hell are you starting Josh Allen against the New England Patriots in week 18? What are you thinking? He might come in and hand the ball off twice and then leave. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Just to keep that active streak going. So if you're wondering why Josh Allen would possibly ever start week 18, Matt just pointed out exactly why. All right, well, that was interesting. I'll say this too. There's another silver lining. If you are one of those fans who care about stats, in the MVP race as well. If you care about those sort of things, playing another game is an opportunity for starters to add to their season stats. For some of these guys, I'm sure they might have some incentives in their contracts as well to reach certain numbers. But you look at the Bills right now, and a couple things that stand out, like James Cook is 72 yards shy of 1,000 yards. So that's in play. He needs 1 rushing touchdown to do what Josh Allen did last year. So that's in play. For Josh, he needs 3 total touchdowns to get to 40 for the season. So that's something, again, especially if you're, want him to win MVP, that's something that matters.
Yep.
Khalil Shakir, I mean, this might take more than 2, or 1 game might take 2, but he needs 204 yards to get to 1,000. It's not really very realistic, at least for one game. But he needs 7 catches to get to 80. I think that could be in play realistically. If Group could have a big game against a shitty Jets offense, he's 2.5 sacks short of hitting double digits. He's 4 tackles for a loss short of 20. So there are stats potentially in play. The one that jumps out to me is James Cook getting his 1,000 yards and Josh Allen 3 total touchdowns to get
Yes.
to 40. Do you think, I mean, you hinted at it a little bit, you know that the players, the team wants these guys to get these numbers. Like the team is all in to get Josh Allen an MVP, for an example. Do you think Sean McDermott cares at all about personal accolades like that? And if he does he do it enough to potentially go with the guy longer than he should? With kind of circling back to my original question, though, in a way, the Bills having to win this game creates a lot less stress and a dilemma for Sean McDermott on who to play and who not to play, right?
Yes, absolutely. I especially like this week. Like if they had locked in that 2 seed and there's still 2 weeks left, it'd be like, all right, well, we definitely are gonna like pull our foot off the gas and things like that. So
Mhm.
the fact that they have to go for the 2 seed, Josh getting to like what is it, six consecutive seasons at 40 touchdowns is obviously a big deal. But to your other question, like, does it matter to the people inside the building? Yeah, I think it does. Um, and so because it matters to all of those people, like it has to matter a little bit at least to Sean McDermott. Like, yeah, he can shut it down and say individual stats don't matter and all this other stuff. But like at the end of the day, he still has to go in and like see all of those people, and like it would be hard to bench Josh Allen in that particular sense.
Sure. Last point too that I think is a nice little silver lining about not already having the 2 seed is if you care about momentum and a team looking good and looking their best, at least maybe not necessarily their best, but at least sharp going into the playoffs. I think we would all agree. And we didn't get a chance to talk again because, it was the holiday. So we really didn't talk anything about last week's game against the Patriots. But I think this is a good opportunity for the Bills to kind of wipe a little bit of that stink that they might still have on them from that game against the Patriots. I mean, let's just face it. They won that football game, and obviously that matters the most. But it was an ugly game. They did not play well. The defense got takeaways, which helped mask the fact that they weren't very good, especially early in the game, at least anyway. The offense was very shaky. It was an okay game for Josh, nothing special. But the Bills won. But that said, again, I thought they kind of stunk. And I felt like if they would have lost that game, I would have been like, well, they deserve to lose that football game. That's the way that was my takeaway for this game. Do you believe in momentum being a big factor? And do you think it's necessary to go out and have a good showing to kind of get ready for the playoffs? It's kind of like maybe a little bit lesser importance, but like, the end of a preseason, you want your starters to go in there, look good, and have momentum going into the regular season. Does that mean anything to you?
I'm not a big proponent of momentum. Like obviously,
Mm.
like the Bills' offense was riding a huge heater and then went against the Patriots and nothing happened. So like, if momentum was the thing, the Bills would have played better against the Patriots because they were coming off 2 great games. Well, 4 straight games, I say the offense has been doing really well. So I mean, so I'm not really a fan of that. I'm more like, getting folks interested in getting folks healthy as opposed to like shaking off the stank. I'm more interested in shaking off the rust. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's I get it too. And it does matter too, which, it goes, it makes you wonder though, the rust, like if they would have had 2 weeks of basically bye weeks, and you can make a case that at least for some of these guys who've been banged up, that it would be an awesome opportunity. I'm looking at the press conference right now as we're recording this. Josh Allen's been speaking to the media, and he just says wrapping up the 2 seed is the number one priority. All stuff that we would expect to hear from him. Speaking of Josh, I got to tell you, so this Josh Allen Lamar Jackson debate is really become one of maybe the biggest, most fascinating storyline of the season, but also without question the most insanely like annoying. It's really frustrating. It's gotten to a point of frustration now with people going back and forth because instead of just appreciating two elite quarterbacks in this league who are just doing incredible things, it's like It's a political race. It's a smear campaign. Basically, Ravens fans are smearing Josh Allen. And hey, look, there's a lot of Bills Mafia out there that are doing the same and discounting a lot of what Lamar Jackson does. If you're anti Josh, you get the Houston Texans game thrown in his face where he was 9 for 30. You're anti Lamar, you get the fact that they lost to Gardner Minshew and the Jameis Winston constantly thrown in his face, like Lamar lined up to play defense that day. It's just what Lamar did, by the way, against Houston. He was phenomenal. I mean, he was
Yeah.
phenomenal. And I'll remind everybody, Lamar has played, because it's about stats, and his stats matter, although apparently not so much last year. Last year was just a really weird year with the MVP, but Lamar's played an extra game now because he played on Wednesday. But right now, as we record this, Lamar's got 3,955 passing yards, which is third in the NFL. He's got 39 touchdown passes, tied for first. He's only thrown 4 interceptions this season. 39 touchdowns, almost 4,000 yards, 4 picks. That's insanity, dude. Quarterback QBR rating is 77.7, which is the best. He's also ran for 852 yards. That's not much less than James Cook, folks. All right. 4 touchdowns there as well. So 43 total touchdowns, 8 turnovers. Josh, statistically, not as impressive for the most part. 3,549 passing yards, which right now going into this game is I had to do the math, pull out my little calculator, 406 yards behind Lamar. He's thrown for 26 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions. His QBR is second in the NFL, only to Lamar. He's rushed for 514 yards and 11 touchdowns. Add it all up, 37 touchdowns total, which is 6 less than Lamar. But again, he's still got a game to go on Sunday, and 7 turnovers, which is 1 less. If Josh can go out Sunday, throw for around close to 300 yards, get a 3 touchdown total game, stats are kind of even. What's your takeaway? I know you well enough to know that you might want Josh Allen to win MVP, but I also know you that you're an objective person and you'll call it how you see it. How do you see this right now? If you had an MVP vote, what are you doing as things stand right now?
Oh, I think it's an easy vote for Josh Allen, and that's not because I'm
Okay.
a homer.
Sure.
Lamar Jackson's had a better season than Josh Allen. Joe Burrow's had a better season than Josh Allen. Like, I think that these things are all true, but the NFL's most valuable player is supposed to go to the guy who's most contributed to their team's success. And Josh Allen does not have an all-pro running back behind him. No offense to James Cook. Like, James Cook is a Pro Bowl running back, very good at what he does. He's not Derrick Henry, first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think that's a big piece of this conversation as well. When you're defending the Ravens, as the Bills found out, when you're defending the Ravens, you have to account for Derrick Henry in the backfield. And so it just opens up more for Lamar Jackson through no fault of his own. So I think if you're talking about the person that's most responsible for their team's offensive success, I think it goes to Josh Allen, and it's not even close.
That's very fair. That really is. It's truly very fair. I don't even think it's just football. It's all sports. I think the word MVP gets misconstrued sometimes for the most statistically impressive person. Lamar Jackson is the most statistically impressive person. He won last year, but he won MVP. That's the ironic thing about Lamar Jackson. To me, a season like Lamar Jackson is somebody who wins Offensive Player of the Year. Although Saquon Barkley is very much in the mix, who might break Eric Dickerson's record. If you're pro Josh Allen, and you are, and you know what? I am not as clear cut though, because I just think Lamar's been special, and I feel like he really gets it held against him because Derrick Henry's on his team, but it's not his fault. But I get it. I understand why. But if you're pro Josh Allen, look, your boy's 13-3. He's 13-3. And let's not forget about last spring and summer. Let's not forget that they lost Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and what the expectations of this football team were. All right. This was a team that was, by most accounts, the second or even third best team in their own division. And here they go yet again. I think now for a third straight year, they're about to be the number 2 seed in the AFC. So he's done it with a whole slew of either, younger guys who have just got another year of experience, and a couple of other additions. Matt Collins was a special team guy last year, for Christ's sake, with Atlanta. Amari Cooper came midseason, and quite frankly, hasn't really even been that big of a deal offensively. So you look at that. And then you look at statement wins, signature wins. Josh Allen not only is the only team, the Bills are not only the team that beat the Chiefs, they also beat the Lions on the road, which ended in an 11-game winning streak for Detroit. And not only was Josh Allen a factor in those games, he was quite literally the AFC Offensive Player in the Week against Kansas City and at Detroit. And he's won it 3 times in 4 weeks. And he would have won it, or 2 times in 3 weeks. And he would have won it literally all 3 times if the Bills defense didn't shit the bed against the Rams. He absolutely had 6, what do you have, 6 touchdowns or total touchdowns that game against the Rams? 100% he wins AFC Offensive Player of the Week for 3 straight weeks, were it not for his defense. So you look at all the pro Josh things, the only thing you could possibly throw at him was the Houston game. And again, shit happens. He had a bad game. No Khalil Shakir. No excuses either. You know what? I don't give a shit that Khalil Shakir didn't play, or they were missing Teron Johnson and Oliver. He played like shit that game. MVP players over the course of 17 games will have a shit game. You know what? I just talked myself into it. Between what you said to me and going over my case, I was going to take the cop-out easy road and say I got go MVPs if I had a ballot, but not anymore. Josh Allen, he's your MVP still this year.
Yeah, and again, MVP voters over the years have proven that wins matter to them, whether or not wins are a QB stat. The voters have said that they are in this particular case. And so the Ravens having 5 losses, I mean, them getting into the divisional lead is at least going to help them. But you saw last year, Lamar Jackson got so many first place votes because the Ravens were the number 1 seed in AFC. Yep. Josh Allen had a better statistical year than Lamar Jackson, but they weren't the number 1 seed, so Lamar got more votes. And I just think that it does come down to that. You're not going to give Patrick Mahomes the MVP this year. At least I don't think you are. No. It's ranked choice voting now. It's not just one vote for one person. And so, Mahomes is going to get MVP votes. I don't think he's going to get any first team MVP votes. But they've shown over and over again that they want to give it to someone in the top. Usually it's the top seed in one of the 2 conferences. I don't really know why. We haven't seen Jared Goff get more shine over, in the Lions. I think Ben Johnson gets more of the credit than Jared Goff does. And so that might be one of the reasons over in the NFC, playing with the 1 seed. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to get it. Saquon obviously got pushed for a long time and still is in that MVP mix if the Eagles end up as the 1 seed and he breaks Eric Dickerson's record. But again, all those guys, Saquon, I guess, has, an all-pro under center with Jalen Hurts. He's got an all-pro at wide receiver with A.J. Brown. The Eagles' offense would be fine without Saquon. There's a reason he's breaking that rushing record. It is because there's so many other things that the Eagles can do to you that they just have to sort of pick their poison. But we keep saying, the Bills don't necessarily have that same thing. Amari Cooper's played less than 25% of the snaps this year. He's the only real all-pro guy on the team, or at least skill position player on the team. I don't want to trash Deion Dawkins, who I think has been playing really, really well.
No, absolutely. And look, again, anti-Lamar stuff, if you're going to talk about all the wonderful accolades and stats he has that support his case, you have to mention the fact that Derrick Henry has 1,783 yards rushing with still a game to go. I mean, if he even has a cup of coffee next week, he's going over 1,800 yards rushing. He's got 14 rushing touchdowns. He's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. Again, you can't not mention the fact that they lost to both the Raiders and the Browns. And you know what? They lost to Pittsburgh earlier this year, a good team, 18-16. And Lamar kind of played I watched that game. I thought he kind of played like shit that game. He was 16 of 33, 207 yards, a touch, and 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was not very good that game. I remember it. I watched that game. So lots of stuff that you can say against it. So I'm with you now. I would go Josh, but one final question about this. Actually, 2 things. Number 1, let me ask you this. How annoying is it to you? On a scale of 1 to 10, I know you're not on Twitter as much anymore. You spend more of your time on Blue Sky, but I'm sure you still see a lot of the MVP chatter, and not just fans. You expect fans. You expect Bills Mafia, some of them, to be idiots towards Ravens fans. You expect, what's a Ravens flock? That's what they're called, right? You expect a lot of them to be idiots and discrediting towards Josh Allen. That's an expectation. How annoyed, let me ask you this, how annoyed do you get with the national media talking heads like RG3 especially, and especially Emmanuel Aku, who literally have talked about Josh Allen being MVP, MVP, MVP. And now over the last 7 days, is the MVP race over? And Lamar's locked it up. And shit, RG3 did it yesterday. Emmanuel did it pretty much yesterday. Does that get under your skin, or do you just realize that's part of the gig, man? These guys are just looking for clicks, attention, engagement, whatever it may be. Or does that still get under your skin a little bit?
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into the talking head stuff just because it's not. I don't watch those shows. I don't really get into it.
Right.
Um, I like retweeting a good Cal Brandt rant or something like that when he goes like when he does, especially when he pumps up the mafia. But no, like especially like Acho, like he's just all over the place. He never makes sense. He contradicts himself, and so like I don't put a lot of stock into like his in particular. You talk with Dan Orlovsky or like some of these other folks that watch the tape, Mina Kimes, like when they say stuff, I pay attention more so than some of those like hot take artists. It's almost like going back to Skip Bayless when he would like walk in and throw the Cowboys jersey in the trash can. Like it loses its appeal after the first time you do it. Like
Yeah.
it's not fun anymore, and it's not funny anymore. And so like changing your mind about who the MVP is every like 2 days. Like Josh Allen comes out against the Jets and throws for 4 touchdowns and like 200 yards. Those same guys are going to be like, oh, did you see what Josh Allen did this weekend? And like completely forget that Lamar Jackson played his ass off in like 2 straight weeks on national television. So
Yeah, and especially like if one of the touchdowns is like him scrambling and throwing the
yeah,
ball, and as he's falling off on the sideline. One typical Josh Allen highlight play, and it's right back to the same shit, the flip flop. And it's like I think Sarah Larson pointed out, like Emmanuel's getting like whiplash just going back and forth between who's the MVP. I'll tell you this: no matter what side of the fence you fall on, again, all roads seem to be leading towards a divisional round Bills Ravens clash. No matter who you feel is the MVP, this debate is likely to culminate with what will be one of the most highly anticipated AFC divisional round games you're ever going to see between two quarterbacks who certainly have a fair case to win MVP. Which, one last question about that, I'll ask you. It's not likely, but let's just say that the New York Jets managed to go in their time machine and go back to being the Jets defense of like 2021 to 2023 that has kind of stymied Josh Allen. Josh Allen historically has not played very well for the most part against the New York Jets. Let's just say doomsday scenario here. If anyone out there thinks that one game wouldn't matter, let's what happens on Sunday if let's say the Jets win. Let's just say it. The Jets pull out a stunner on Sunday. The Bills are shell shocked. Whatever happened last week against New England just lingers. And Josh Allen has one of those completed 50% of his passes with one touchdown and two interceptions, maybe even a lost fumble or something like that. Do you agree that that one game still could have the ability to impact, if not turn, the MVP race on its head? Just that one game on Sunday still? Like Josh still has to go and lock this down, doesn't he?
yeah, I don't think he's going to lock it up with a month left. And a lot of people were saying that after the back-to-back games with the Rams and Lions, plus the highlight reels against the 49ers and Chiefs before that. So there were people that, before the Patriots game saying, oh, he's already wrapped it up, he's locked it up. And I'm not 100% sure when the votes go out or when the voting is supposed to like take place, when they're supposed to collect those. But
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to send those in until after the regular season finale. So like, it's not like sometimes we like the Pro Bowl voting. Like most of the Pro Bowl voting's already happened, right? So like whatever happens these last 2 weeks doesn't really impact that. But for those regular season Associated Press awards, that voting has not happened yet. So people may have made up their minds, but nobody's cast a ballot yet, and so stuff can definitely change over the last 2 weeks here for sure.
Yeah, I would say at least this game itself. If Josh
Yeah,
Allen went out and played terrible, and especially if they were to lose at home to the Jets, the biggest case against Lamar right now is, hey, you lost to the Raiders and the Browns. Losing to the Jets at home in week 17, that could definitely negatively impact his chances of winning MVP. And look, I could sit here and say I don't care all I want, but that's kind of a lie. I do care. I want my quarterback to go down as one of the all-time greats when it's all said and done. And we all know he's one of the all-time great physical, skilled quarterbacks of all time. We already know that. But if you want to be considered in that top 3 to 10 quarterback class of all time, You gotta win an MVP or two. You got to get to a Super Bowl or two. So I do care. I'd be lying to you to say that I didn't. A little bit of Bills injury news here as we're recording. The injury report just got published. The one change from Wednesday to Thursday is Matt Milano was upgraded to full. Him and Rasul Douglas both practice in white jerseys. Where still limited is Damar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, Taylor Rapp, and Curtis Samuel. Those four guys, they all practiced in red non-contact jerseys. Tyler Grable, personal reason it says did not participate. I hope everything's all right with him, but he doesn't factor into Sunday. All right, so two questions to look at this injury report. One of them is kind of I'm going to extend it to week 18 as well. I've talked about this a little bit on the show earlier this week. If Matt Milano can go, he's playing. Obviously on Sunday, because all the starters are going to play now because they don't have the 2 seed. But if they get into a scenario where they win, they wrap up the 2, do you think there's still a chance that Matt Milano is one of the very few starters that needs to play week 18 at Foxborough because you need to see more from him before you decide he's going to be my guy and not Dorian Williams, who I thought played fantastic last week, by the way, against the Patriots. Matt Milano needs the reps, right? Regardless of whether you got anything locked up or not. He's not one of those guys that can afford to rest. Is he? Or am I wrong?
Maybe I would like to see him play just for like peace of mind for me, but that doesn't mean the Bills are going to do that. They've been very careful with injuries all year. So like I want to see him get his legs back under him, proverbially and literally, but like I don't know if the Bills are going to necessarily see it that way.
All right. In terms of the safeties, I wonder if he's starting to have exercise a little bit of overabundance of caution with Rapp and Hamlin because they're practicing. They practiced all week, limited last week too. There was no DMPs with the Bills last week. I thought maybe it's because they paid the Patriots and they said, you know what, we can win at home. I ain't risking none of these dudes. I don't know if they go down that road again this week with Rapp and Hamlin specifically. Is this the week? I feel like I could ask you this every week. Is this the week where Micah Hyde makes his Buffalo Bills season debut? Because Cam Lewis is also on the injury report right now as limited. I'm not sure what his injury was. His shoulder. He's got a shoulder issue, so he's limited. Is this the week that we see Micah Hyde? I feel like I ask you that every single week.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't surprise me. I would love to see him get like some game reps, like treat these next 2 games as like his preseason ramp up period, and just to get those live reps in. So it certainly wouldn't surprise me. It would surprise me if he like stepped in and was the starter if Damar Hamlin was out with his injury or something. But him going in and playing, a few series on defense, that wouldn't surprise me at all. No.
Okay, I will say this again: all hands on deck this week. If you could play. If you're healthy enough to play, you're playing this week for sure. If you're close, if you're on the fence, I think that Sean's going to sit you. However, if you sit this week and you're a starter, you're probably done playing until the playoffs, which, by the way, would that concern you, Matt? So Rapp and Hamlin have both missed the last 2 games. Let's say they don't play this game. They're not going to play week 18 if they got the 2 seed. Would you be concerned about a pair of safeties that would go 4 weeks without having a game? It would be 5 weeks by the time they played a football game. Is that too long, do you think, for a starting safety, let alone 2 of them to go in between playing real live games?
I think if they're able to play, they should play and knock off that rust like we keep talking about with Matt Milano and other folks. So, I think it would be too long to go 5 weeks if they can play, even in week 18, if the 2 seeds locked up.
Okay. In terms of the other players, I think you play this week, and I think week 18 is a preseason game. Josh gets to start, so he keeps the streak going, plays. I don't even want him to play a series. I want him to hand the ball off twice, get out of there. Or hand the ball off 3 times, play the first drive, and be done if there's nothing at stake, with the exception to me of Matt Milano, because it's not about health, and I know what he's been, what he's done throughout his career, but I think the staff needs, and maybe they have not, maybe they do know more than we do. I need to see more from Matt Milano to make me not want to call for Sean McDermott's head if the Bills lose and play bad defensively in the playoffs because Dorian Williams is sitting on the bench while Matt Milano, who looks helpless out there at times, is still out there. So we'll see how that plays out. They're playing the Jets this week. Quickly here, what Jets team do you expect to see on Sunday? Because obviously they're 4-11. They stink. They're a disaster. They're organizationally, they're a laughing stock in that regards. But I just week after week after week, I look at this team and I'm like, man, you got Brees Hall, you got Devontae Adams, you got Garrett Wilson, you got Sauce Gardner, you got Quentin Williams, you got good player Hassan Reddick, who's got, by the way, 1/2 a sack in 8 games this season for them so far. What Jets team are you expecting to see that comes to Orchard Park? Is this a team that's going to go out there desperately trying to get some momentum into the offseason, or is this just a team that's ready to cash a check and go into offseason mode right now? What's your gut telling you?
Right. I think they're playing out the string. Michael Carter missed last week with an injury. He's still on the did not practice list. Devontae Adams, Sauce Gardner, both those guys didn't practice this week. Hassan Reddick was limited. So there's like a lot of reasons to question whether or not the Jets are going to be putting forth, 100% effort. Like it's not like a young guy trying to get his next contract. I mean, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Like they don't have anything left to prove. And by going out in week 17 and lighting up this Bills team.
As well as I'm looking right now, the Jets don't have an official injury report released for Thursday as we tape this. I know he was limited on or didn't practice at all. Devontae Adams on Wednesday. He was limited according to a Jets beat reporter. He was out there for practice, but didn't do positional drills. I'll tell you what, I'll feel a lot more at ease and comfortable about this game if there's no Devontae Adams, because he's just one of those dudes who can. He has that potential to take a game over. I'm gonna have a full Bills Jets preview, bowl predictions, all that stuff tomorrow. All right, it's enough talk about the New York Football Jets. Although they are the one thing left now standing in the way of the Bills locking up the 2 seed. Interesting, I think the most interesting thing at this point for Bills fans is how the 7 seed plays out, because that's going to be who the Bills play. It's almost certainly not going to be the Chargers. They're going to be the 5 or the 6. They're already 9-6, and they got the Patriots in Vegas left. We talked a little bit about who would you rather see play Baltimore, but I kind of want to focus on Pittsburgh. See, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Denver or Indy at this point. I'm almost ready to say since he's done, just because of the other stuff that's got to happen, but a little scared to do that. Another silver lining we didn't talk about, I should say, just hit me. The Kansas City win means they ain't got none to play for. So if you are keep the Bengals away at all costs, like I am, and I know you have been as well, that is a good silver lining for the Bills, because Pat Mahomes ain't nobody playing next week for Kansas City, and Denver may need that game to get into the playoffs. So that's a big boost for them and a big detriment to Cincinnati. But Denver, Indy, if Denver happens to just completely drop the ball, Indy could still be in the mix. I'm trying to look at that. I don't think Pittsburgh could be the 7th seed, could they?
Right. Pittsburgh and Baltimore have both clinched ahead of the Chargers and Broncos because they've beaten them both this season. So they have the season sweep over both of those teams.
All right. Well, Pittsburgh, we're kind of talking this out here in real time. Pittsburgh's 10-6. Let's just say they lose next week to Cincy and they finish 10-7, right?
Yep.
Where's Denver? Denver, let's say Denver wins out. Could happen, right? So
Denver would be ahead of them, yes.
Denver would be ahead of them. So Denver could finish 11-6.
Yep.
Pittsburgh could still be the 7, right?
It could. Yep.
All right, so maybe we should be included Pittsburgh in this mix here. I mean, who does Pittsburgh play week 18? They play Cincinnati in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. If Cincy's eliminated, and they could be eliminated, did they still try to beat Pittsburgh? I say yes. They got none. What are they resting for? Not for the playoffs. They still got guys. I could see Cincy beat it. Pittsburgh's in play for the 7 seed now, I think. Are you worried about them? Pittsburgh, Denver, Indy. Indy would be first. That's a stupid question. We're going to disclude them. Who would you rather play right now in the first round of the playoffs as the 7? Pittsburgh or Denver? Because those look like the 2 most likely candidates. And as I'm looking at the schedule, well, Denver could lose to Cincinnati, and then Pittsburgh would win a tiebreaker with Denver, correct? Pittsburgh wins a tiebreaker over Denver. So if Denver were to lose at Cincy this week, Pittsburgh can't be the 7. But if Denver beats the Bengals on the road this week, Pittsburgh's in play for the 7. Just for the sake of discussion, as we're getting out of here, who would you rather play, Pittsburgh or Denver? What team would scare you more?
I mean, just Denver, just because they have a rookie quarterback, playing in his first playoff game. They both have really good defenses. I just feel like the Steelers can turn it on that pass rush like few other teams in the NFL can, and their defensive front scares me. Now they're my fantasy defense, and they lost me points this week to the Kansas City Chiefs. So and then even the week before they didn't do very very great. On that Saturday before Christmas either. So but they can turn it on in any game and just absolutely wreak havoc on the pass rush. And so I would not want to see Pittsburgh in the wild card round if I could avoid it.
I think that's fair. I'll say this. And by the way, you said fantasy. Our boy Bruce Nolan beat me in our Media League semis. Had to be the week where Jonathan Taylor decides, hey, I'm going to run for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And also the week where he starts the, what was it, the Indy defense? Whoever played the Giants last week and had 2 pick sixes just freaking killed me. Anyway, congratulations to Bruce. I'm going to end this way. I want to go through the best case scenario for the Bills right now. Let's just do best case. Okay. And City's already locked into the 1. Let me know if you agree with this. So the Bills would be the 2. And I think I would rather play Pittsburgh, best case scenario here, as the 7 instead of Denver. Like you said, Denver's got a really strong defense. They like to run the ball, a rookie quarterback, a little bit unknown there. Now, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be afraid of Denver. I'd almost be like 50-50. Give me either of those teams. But I'm going to say Denver because I think Pittsburgh would have a better chance as the 6 of beating Baltimore, the 3, even though Baltimore kind of put it on them. They're so familiar with them. Mike Tomlin, I like their chances a little bit better than Denver. So I kind of flip that now. So give me Denver 7 against the Bills. Yeah, we ain't losing an old rookie quarterback in Orchard Park in the wild card round. Just ain't happening, folks. Pittsburgh at Baltimore, 6 versus 3 would be ideal because I think Pittsburgh would have a better chance to knock them off. And I want the Chargers as the 5 and to beat Houston as the 4 because I'll tell you, familiarity, the Chargers play the Chiefs tough all the time. I just looked. They played obviously twice every year. They lost to them 17-10 in week 4, and they lost to them 19-17 in week 14. The Chargers know how to beat the Chiefs. They got to go out and do it. But I feel like of those second-tier teams, Pittsburgh, Denver, the Chargers, I think the Chargers far and away would have the best chance. And I'll throw Houston in there as well. I think the Chargers have the best chance to beat the Chiefs in a divisional round. So if you're going to get to the championship game and you want the Chiefs knocked out, I think the Chargers would have the best chance. Sound about right to you?
Yeah, and I'm like we keep saying, the Chiefs are beatable by almost everybody. They played a 1-score game against everybody. It's just who makes fewer mistakes, and the Chiefs just don't typically make mistakes. So I think that there's a lot of paths to the Bills hosting the AFC Championship game.
There it is. I just called it in my mind. Your AFC title game, folks, is going to be the Buffalo Bills hosting at Highmark Stadium the Los Angeles Chargers, who go into Houston, and then they go into Arrowhead, and they end up losing to the Bills. So there's your best path to the Super Bowl. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you follow Matt on Twitter and Blue Sky at Matt Rich Warren. Blue Sky, you already know the shit you got to end or at the end of the handle. Appreciate you doing this, man. Being flexible like you always are with me. We were supposed to do this earlier in the day. Just wasn't feeling it earlier, so appreciate you coming on later. And you'll be back hopefully next week, normal time, and hopefully the Bills will lock up the number 2 seed. And we're going to have to get really creative to come up with something interesting because a lot of this shit we're talking about today may already be settled come next week. So be prepared for a 50-minute does Matt Milano play against New England Patriots diatribe. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks a lot. I'll look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, guys, and I will be back actually with a bonus Saturday episode, Bills, Jets preview and bowl predictions, all that and more coming up tomorrow.